English language teaching in India, it is itself a typical phenomenon because it has a long capacity to control English language teaching across the world. It is a fact that English language teaching was a prime necessity at some particular time, and at some other time it was not so. However, when we will consider English language teaching in terms of Indian Peninsula, then we have to be specific about how it came to be a part of Indian pedagogy. Because whatever English that English men over here tried to establish, tried to teach rather, is it in the way that we are following or not? That is again a question we have to understand. It is again a question of typical phase-wise historical perspective. Should we consider it as a historical perspective only, or as a part of English pedagogy all over the world? We have to think in a different way altogether. Should we consider English language teaching as it happened to be a part and authentic predicament of English language over here in India? As a matter of fact, we see the beginning of English language teaching in India before the Diwani that was given to East India Company in 1765. It is better to take for our account three important phases of English language teaching in India. I would like to consider the primary phase that started long before, just after the establishment of East India Company in 1600. It is a matter of fact that after 1600, English people first moved to Goa region of India, where Portuguese base was already there, and it was available to them also as the primary center. We would, in this particular lecture, try to focus upon three important phases. Phase 1, English language teaching in India at the primary stage, when English East India Company established their factory in Goa region, then moved to Carnatic region, and then moved to Madras region before coming to Bengal. So that is a long phase. We can consider 1601 to 1750 as the first phase of English language teaching in India. The second phase we would like to consider from 1750 onwards till East India Company rule, that is till 1857. The third phase, which is most important part before India got independence, is the Crown rule in India from 1857 to 1947 till the British rule ended over here in India. We would like to see English language teaching. It was started first under the care and guidance of the British Crown when Charles I first made it necessary for East India Company to bring one Christian chapel, that is from 1611 onwards, when the teaching of Bible as well as preaching of Bible, that is also English Bible, I mean Anglicized Bible, teaching of Bible and preaching of Bible was made mandatory by Charles I himself. By 1611, the Anglicized Bible was available. So it was the first impetus that the British Crown gave to East India Company. As a matter of fact, if we move down the line, we will find in 1633 there was a chapel clause added to the charter given to East India Company. The chapel clause made it mandatory for English East India Company to bring one chapel, I mean one Christianary missionary chapel to India with every ship having a weight of 10 tons. Naturally, one important phase of teaching Bible in Goan region was available from this particular document. Another important dimension of English language teaching came over before we reach 1670. Dear friends, we have to consider that in 1670 there was one important occasion, rather event in England. Because we have to consider English language teaching in India is not a discrete thing. It is a part of whatever development England was having by that time. You all know it was the period of restoration from 1649 to 1660. You have already understood it was Cromwell's rule in England. And after 1660, when Charles II was restored to his position, naturally there was French influence upon English language teaching in England itself. The three primary issues that I want to focus on are the content of English language teaching in India. The second, the medium. What was the medium of instruction? And the third, the infrastructural thing that covers the level, the grade, for which grade we should teach English. And what is also important, that is how much should we take a particular course for English language teaching. If we look back during 17th century, the total focus of the content, what would be the content of English teaching, we will find that the major content of English teaching was Shakespeare itself. Shakespeare's plays, almost all the plays were made content for English language teaching in Indian Peninsula. When I refer to Indian Peninsula, it refers to mainly the Deccan, that is first Carnatic zone and then Chennai zone. To today's Chennai, that time it was called Madras. When we move from Madras chapter to Kolkata chapter, we see that Lord Clive, who was the first governor of Bengal over here, Clive brought one important Swiss academician, and that Swiss academician, who was Schwarzen by name, made a number of attempts to establish English school in Bengal. Even when Fort William School was not established, Schwarzen's free school was established in Kolkata. It is a matter of fact, today, even today, we will find free school street in Kolkata. And when Schwarzen started this free school school, there was another drive, because the St. Mary's School were already there in Madras, and he followed that Bengal schools should also be established in the model of St. Mary's that were already established in Madras. We should not forget that there were 3 parallel tribes during that time, means 1750 onwards, even before the Battle of Plassey in 1757 that you all know. When we see 3 parallel tribes, one tribe was from Christian missionary people, the other tribe was from private organization. You will wonder that private organization was also one important factor during primary school setting in English medium in Calcutta of that time. Mainly the Booksellers Guild of Calcutta. That guild was a powerful society, and it established a number of schools where they could sell their textbooks. The third force to establish schools over here was English East India Company School, and those schools were known as Anna School during that time. Why? Because students had to pay 1 anna as their fees, that too in yearly mode. So, if we like to trace English language teaching during the first phase, we can take up to 1765. The question remains, what happened in 1765 that made one watershed in English language teaching in India? You will understand that 1765 is known for the year when East India Company got Diwani, and you know, once they got Diwani means they got right to collect revenue from Bengal farmers. The moment they got the right to collect revenue, there was one easy tussle with the local lords, local zamindars. Dear friends, let us look back to what happened when East India Company started the same sort of enterprise in Carnatic Belt during 1730s and 1740s. The same effort East India Company did in Madras before Madras was announced as Madras Presidency. We find that there was a tussle, rather a tripartite tussle in between English East India Company in one hand, the local lords, and the third protagonist of that particular area were none but the local religious monks and all temple priests. They didn't like a new system, a new education system, that is English education system, to be established in the Deccan. So, let us come back to see once again what happened in Bengal Presidency. Though Bengal didn't get the tag Bengal Presidency, that tag was given later on, that we will discuss. One thing that is very important over here, after 1765 we see a change in British East India Company's what you call capacity, or British East India Company's influential tag. What? British East India Company got the Diwani right upon Bengal, means it became the ruling class. Now, the ruling class couldn't impose any missionary religious preaching in the name of missionary schools. So, that is why what they did, British company stopped the payment of subsidy to Christian missionaries. Now, you see what happened. Christian missionaries who were having so many schools running during that time, they lost the flow, the energy to establish more schools, to cover or to get more people for English teaching. for the simple reason that the company stopped all sorts of aids to them. And what happened? Company started a sort of schools, Anna schools, as I have already mentioned. Those Anna schools actually started teaching a sort of what we call non-religious text. Now the question refers to content again. Content wise, your literature keep detailed encounter with the classroom situation. Why? There were two possible reasons. Religious texts were banned first in schools, that means no Bible was taught. No other religious text got any chance to be there. And what actually remained, English grammar got entry into the system of teaching. So this is again a problem, because whenever we find that Serampur missionaries were most powerful people, influential people during the first phase of what we call company rule in India, and that is specifically in Bengal. What happened? Let us try to see once again. In company rule, we found that the company was interested to collect revenue. So they started building good relationship with the local jamindars. And you all know that the permanent settlement under Lord Cornwallis in 1793 that started a new relationship building phase with the local jamindars, and they didn't take care of the common men. So now the question remains that how many people got the opportunity of English education? That was a prime issue during company rule, that is from 1765 to 1857. We must look back to see some important phases during 1765 to 1857. One important landmark I should mention, that is when we got establishment of Fort William College in Kolkata, that is in the year 1800. Now what happened with the establishment of Fort William College in Kolkata? There were a number of people who were interested in English education only because there was job opportunity whenever they learned English language. So their focus was to be in company job as writers. And today, whatever writers building you people see, this is just projection of a number of colleges were there. There were so many hostels also. And today's IST, that is Indian Institute of Technology, which was earlier known as BESU, the engineering classes actually started in writers building. So it is one important factor, an important dimension, that English language was used by the professionals by that time. Why? Because the surveyor schools and other sort of engineering schools like mechanical engineering and other departments were also started only having the flow of English language. Why? Because English was not only a medium, but English was a content subject for general colleges. This is again an important dimension of English language teaching. We should be very much careful about that English was taught as a subject, English was taught as a content paper, and at the same time English was taught as a medium for a number of schools. Now what happened? That English got that much what you call priority among all other Indian languages also. Let us look back to what happened in 1833, the famous charter. In 1833, section 43 of that charter mentioned that English East India Company will spend lot of money only to establish English schools over there, and English language should get enough opportunity to flourish in the heart field of India. There is one important phase that we know as Macaulay's Minute. It was established on the basis of the Regulating Act of 1833, and this 1835 February 2 is notable for Macaulay's Minute. What happened in Macaulay's Minute? Macaulay tried to interpret 1833 section 43 from two perspectives. Number one, that no one who is expert in Indian language will get any scholarship for Pandithood. And the second one, that no scholarship should be given to people who are expert in Oriental language. We need to take you people back to the common understanding about the medium and the subject content. For the medium, there were already two groups in Bengal. One group was called Orientalist. They tried to establish that Indian regional languages should be taught, including Urdu, that was already official language earlier during Mughal period. And one important factor that was added, that Anglicist people at the same time wanted that no, English should be taken as the medium for Indian classrooms. So there was a lot of tussle in between Anglicists and Orientalists that you all know. But what is more important from English language teaching aspect, that we need to take care of that Macaulay got maximum support from the Anglicists of Bengal, and those Anglicists made Macaulay rather face some sort of or phase out some sort of conditions so that only the English schools will get government aids, because government aids was already announced by 1833 Regulating Act. Now we have to consider that when Macaulay told that Indian Pandits or Pandits in Indian languages won't be considered as Pandit, that you all know even Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar got his scholarship stopped by that particular note. This is a matter of fact that Macaulay wanted to use the content dimension. Why? Because he thought that a person who is expert in Milton and in Locke could only get the advantage of getting scholarship for Pandithood. So the definition of Pandithood was changed. Now we should proceed to see what happened in 1854, which is another landmark. We call it Wood's Dispatch. And in Wood's Dispatch we find that technical education was given opportunity to have its role, having English as its medium. And Wood very in clear language dictated that technical education should be brought into the fold of education, otherwise education doesn't become that much helpful for Indians. So this is one important landmark for English language teaching in India. If we move towards the crown rule, that is the first thing that we need to know, in 1857, 3 universities were established in India. First one was Calcutta University, second Madras, and third one Bombay University in the same year, that is 1857. Now, with the beginning of the Crown's rule, 1857, we got 3 universities in India, and all these universities were set up following the model of London University. And you all know the university didn't teach at that particular time any subjects over there that were, those very universities were only controlling education up to class 10 and 12. So, what today's board and your council is doing, that particular work was done by the universities of that time. Later on, the studies of graduation and post-graduations were taken care of by these universities. And one notable thing we will take into our consideration for ELT, that spread of university education in India till 1901. From 1857, we have found a number of universities that were started in India. The next landmark I would like to mention